We're not there yet.
All right, we're live right now. We're going to give it about 2 minutes for the setup. These 2 mics go to the PA.
Yeah, I just told you.
We'll pass that one around as well.
We're going to give it here a minute for people to join us here. That's just my internet. For those of you who don't know, we are live at Moe's Barbecue. We'll be broadcasting from 5 to 6. We have some giveaways as well. If you want to come down and join us. It's pretty packed, but there's some space. We'll be kind of getting going here in a minute. I'm with Brandon Marcello, Keith Niebuhr. I'm Mike Niziolek with Auburn 24/7 Sports, AuburnUndercover.com.
Broadcasting okay. It's a great song.
So far, so good. Everybody can hear us. Let us know if you sound is okay for the viewers at home. We're going to be piping the sound over the PA system as well, but we want to know everybody can hear us.
We're good. We are good. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Marcello with Auburn Undercover on 247sports.com. This is Auburn Undercover live at Moe's Original Barbecue in downtown Auburn. Thanks for joining us here. It is game day eve, guys. That's exciting. Auburn against Georgia Southern. Tonight we'll be taking your questions. We'll be actually having a couple or 3 trivia questions going out as well. That you'll be able to answer for prizes. And, of course, we're going to talk all things Auburn up here. We're just kind of free will it. If you ever listen to one of our podcasts, it's going to be very similar to that. So I hope you enjoy the show, enjoy your dinner here at Moe's Original Barbecue. I'm Brandon Marcello. To my left is Michael Niziolek. And then to his left is Keith Niebuhr. He, of course, is our recruiting guru at Auburn 24/7 Sports. So, let's get the show going, guys. I know Mike is trying to get our video feed up on our website. Good luck with that. But everything seems to be going smoothly on Facebook Live right now. As I said, the game is finally here. My question, and I'll go with Keith first, since Michael's working on this. Everybody's made a big deal about Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback. But what are you looking for most? What are you looking forward to seeing most when Auburn takes the field Saturday night at 6:30 against Georgia Southern?
I think it's the offensive line. I think without question that's the part of the without question the offensive line is what you really want to see. You've lost some pretty good players the last couple of years. How is Auburn recruited? How can Prince Tega Winago Jr. stack up at left tackle, the ultra important position on the offensive line? How does Mike Horton play as a first-time starter at offensive guard? What kind of continuity does the offensive line have? And to me, if the offensive line is as solid as the Auburn staff thinks it can be, and obviously they don't just have 5 good starters, they have some pretty good backups. A couple of older guys, Casey Dunn, the transfer at center from Jacksonville State. Then you've got Wilson Bell, the transfer from Florida State. You've got Calvin Ashley, the young true freshman. And then you've got some other backups that are more than capable of potentially being starters, certainly playing larger roles. So I think the offensive line, to me, is where a lot of the action is going to be this weekend.
I've said. Where? Which way? This one working? No. This one back? All right, here we go. Back up. I've always said the biggest question mark going into the season is the wide receiving group. Unproven. They have a lot of talent. Nate Craig. Pardon?
Go ahead.
Okay. Hold us up as we fix up technical. Got a sound guy now. That's good.
Yeah, be patient with us. Set some things up. It's two mics, those first two mics. I muted one of them. Give us a few minutes here, everybody. Having some feedback issues. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's just testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. That's gonna do. That's good. Thanks. All right. Let's start over. Try that mic. I don't know if it's muted or unmuted. All right. Okay, let's start over. Actually fixed everything. Welcome to Auburn Undercover Live here in downtown Auburn at Moe's Original Barbecue. I'm Brandon Marcello with Auburn 24/7 Sports alongside Michael Niziolek and Keith Niebuhr on the far end of the table here. We want to thank everybody that's watching on Facebook Live and, of course, everybody that's here in downtown Auburn at Moe's Original Barbecue on the eve of game day. Finally, game day is almost here. Auburn versus Georgia Southern. Big game as far as just trying to figure out what this Auburn team's going to look like. We kind of have an idea what the defense might look like, but it's going to be the debut of the Jarrett Stidham era at quarterback. So we're going to take some questions tonight as well. We're going to be doing some trivia questions where you can win free subscriptions to auburnundercover.com as well. So make sure and stick around for that. I just want to get first initial thoughts from all of you, Michael and Keith. We might start with Keith again as Michael continues to work on his computer. Keith, what's really going to stand out to you in this opener against Georgia Southern? What do you really want to see?
What kind of continuity and what kind of player development Auburn has had at the offensive line. In that offensive line group, you've got a new starter at left tackle, Prince Tiga Wanago. You've got a new starter in Michael Horton. And you've got a lot of depth there. You've got a lot of solid players, but how well will that group play together? Because that is obviously where you're going to win and lose games. If Jarrett Stidham has time to throw, that's a good sign for Auburn if he has a clean pocket. And if Auburn can pass, that's going to open up running lanes for Cameron Petway Kerryon Johnson and the other guys. So to me, all eyes are on the offensive line. Is Prince Tega Wanago ready to assume that starting role? I know some people around Auburn think he's a potential first-round pick down the road. Is he there? Is he ready right now? We'll see. Is Michael Horton ready? And again, you've got great depth on the offensive line, which is something that's crucial because it's rare to go through an entire season without having a few injuries on that line. So I like what Auburn has on the offensive line. Individually, let's see how they play together.
Yeah, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, wide receiver is the big question mark for me. They have talent, but it's all unproven. Nate Craig Myers looks like a future star, but can he do that consistently? Guys disappeared for long stretches last year. What does Kyle Davis give them? I think there's some big question marks. Jared Stidham and Gus Malzahn admitted he doesn't have a go-to guy yet, and I think that's going to be a big question mark as we kind of head into tougher games here with Clemson and Missouri at the end of the month.
I think for me, we keep talking about certain positions and everything, and I agree with you, Keith, in the fact that Auburn's got a very deep offensive line. In fact, Chip Lindsey and Gus Malzahn have said they feel like they have 7 or 8 players they feel like could start on any SEC team, which is saying something. Gus Malzahn believes it's the deepest they've ever been along the offensive line. And that might be great. We want to see exactly how the top 5 gel when they go out there against Georgia Southern. I think obviously Auburn's going to be the more talented team across the board. But with Auburn's offensive line, you expect nothing but dominance from that group. Since 2013, Gus Malzahn's most successful teams have been the ones that have been able to run the football and do so successfully. So for those who fully expect Auburn to go out and throw the ball a lot under Chip Lindsey in that first season, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, even with Jared Stidham as the top quarterback and probably the best quarterback Auburn's had from an arm strength consideration and accuracy since, I believe, Cam Newton, if you want to be quite honest about it. We have yet to see him play in Auburn uniform, but I do believe, based solely on his talent, this is a guy that could take Auburn to an SEC championship, but he's got to get in a groove a little bit. And I'll ask you guys this. Does it concern you at all that Jared Stidham hasn't played a game in 2 years?
I think the bigger concern isn't that Jared hasn't played. I think it's that he hasn't played against an SEC, ACC defensive line, a defensive line like they're going to see in Week 2 when they face Clemson, a defensive line like they're going to see from the University of Georgia, from the University of Alabama. In a clean pocket, I think everybody knows what he can do. He's lethal, he's accurate, he's got a strong arm, and he's mobile. But what can he do when it's not a clean pocket? Because he's going to have guys in his face in the SEC. Schools like LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson are going to attack Auburn's offensive line. They're going to throw different things at him, and that's something you don't experience on a week-to-week basis in the Big 12, which, quite frankly, is more of a passer's league, not a offensive line, defensive line league.
I think it's 644 days Jarrett will have gone without throwing a pass in a game, and that's a long time. I think the big question mark will be, is he ready for Week 2? He'll only get about a half to play this week against Georgia Southern. And they're not going to test him very much. So I think I'd be concerned about what does he look like that first half. Does it take him some time when they're on the road at Clemson?
I would not be surprised if Jared Stidham comes out there and he is a little shaky. I think that Auburn will try to go deep a couple times to give him some confidence, but I do believe you will see a lot of short passes. You will see a lot of screens in this game because they're going to be able to utilize their talent on the outside to simply just outrun and outmaneuver this Georgia Southern defense. I mean, this Georgia Southern team is one of the least experienced in all of college football. Only 8 seniors return. They have a redshirt freshman starting at quarterback. They're moving back to the triple option on offense after ditching it last season. They've got good coaches teaching it, but everybody's pretty young running this offensive system. Everybody's pretty young on defense. Auburn's defensive line, I think, will be the story of this game because I think the defensive line is going to absolutely tear up that Georgia Southern offensive line and force them into some turnovers, but also force them into some unforced turnovers as well, which will be, I think, probably the story of the game with the redshirt freshman quarterback not being able to do what you want to do because, one, you're on the road for the first time playing in front of 87,000 fans, but also you're playing against a very good Auburn defense that they expect to be in the top 10 once again. So hopefully we got some audio issues fixed. I hope you can hear me. We're going to move on to a trivia question. We're going to do a trivia question. If you have the answer to this trivia question, come on up. Give us your answer. And if you answer correctly, you will be provided a 3-month subscription to Auburn Undercover. That's auburn.247 sports. 3 free months. That's it's a good deal. So here's the trivia question. You have the answer. Come on up. Question is, name the only 2 Auburn receivers to finish a season with 1,000 yards or more receiving. There's only been 2 in Auburn history. If you have the answer, come up to the table and give us your answer. The winner will get a free subscription to auburn.247 sports. Again, if you have the answer, come on up. The question again is, name the only 2 Auburn receivers to finish a season with 1,000 yards or more receiving. There's only 2 in Auburn history. And as people try to ponder that trivia question, if we have anybody pondering that trivia question, let's move on. I think that the interesting news this week going into this game is, one, Gus Malzahn hates depth charts. Secondly, that was proven when we spoke to Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator this week, when he just let it slip that Nick Coe, backup, is going to start in the season opener. One would assume that that would mean that Nick Coe is going to start over Marlon Davidson at defensive end against Georgia Southern, which is very interesting to me. Nick Coe, I think, is the faster player between the 2. The question is, one, the experience. Nick Coe has not played yet. I'll go to you first, Keith, because you've seen this guy when he was being recruited. What type of player are Auburn fans going to see on the field when Nick Coe makes his debut tomorrow?
Having covered Nick since he was about 16 years old, you're talking about a kid that is already one of the strongest, probably 4 or 5 guys on the entire team. 3-time state wrestling champ in the heavyweight division in the state of North Carolina. Really a freak of nature, athletically and physically. So what you're going to see out of him is at the strong side defensive end position. He's the guy that can take on the tackle and the tight end. And because of his strength and because of the fact Georgia Southern, is going to be running the ball a lot, that probably is why he's going to play a significant amount, supposedly, in this game. Again, because he is so strong and can take out a tackle and a tight end. Again, one of the strongest guys on the team and probably in the entire country. It's a battle of leverage at the strong side defensive end position, and that's what he brings to the table, having that state championship wrestling background.
Well, and he's a guy that they'll move around too. They expect Nick to play inside. He could play with 2 other defensive ends, the Buck and Marlon Davidson. They could use him as a tackle. He talks about his state wrestling background, and he's a guy that redshirted last year, but also didn't play with the scout team. He was with taking 3rd team, 2nd team reps, which gave him an advantage. And that's a big deal. He has an extra year of experience where a lot of other guys were behind. So I think Nick's going to have a big season. And I think Kevin Steele really likes him. He also has a pretty good nickname, Pickle, which is pretty fun. So, Brandon?
I have no idea what you guys are talking about. What are you talking about?
Pickle.
Pickle, the man they call Pickle, Nick Coe. I think that, based off of what Auburn has said and what Kevin Steele has said, I would not be surprised if we see 3 of those pass rusher types on the field at the same time, whether it's Nick Coe on the outside or the inside, in addition to what you'll see with Marlon Davidson, Paul James III, and Jeff Holland. So I think I would keep my eye on that more than anything. I wouldn't say, hey, Nick Coe is not going to be a guy that is taking over from Marlon Davidson and starting over him in every game. But I think Auburn's going to utilize some different looks up front as far as pass rush going into this game. So I'd be really interested to see how this develops, not only in this game going into triple option, but the looks they give Clemson on the defensive line with Nick Coe, Marlon Davidson, Jeff Holland, and one guy maybe you guys have already spoke about is T.D. Moultrie, a player that I would foresee playing Saturday, a true freshman that was lining up at linebacker, recruited as a linebacker. Rodney Garner, the defensive line coach, really, really wanted him badly to be rushing the passer. And certain enough, he's going to get that shot. He's going to line up at Buck to start the season. I think that you could see him make some noise at some point in this game. I don't know if he'll be out there early, but very well could see him out there. So we had an answer to the trivia question. And name 2 Auburn receivers to finish the season with 1,000 yards or more receiving. The answer is Ronnie Daniels in 1999. He had 1,068 yards. And, of course, the great Terry Beasley in 1970, 1,051 yards. Only 2 in Auburn history to have 1,000 yards. Congratulations to Ethan Holmes for winning that. He gets a 3-month free of subscription to auburnundercover.com. Best site there is out there. At some point, I'll get Michael to stop looking at his computer and pay attention to the show.
I'm going to do this. I'm doing my job.
Okay, got to be ready. So, moving forward, we speak about receivers. Is there a receiver on this team that could eclipse 1,000 yards this season?
And probably not, because you have 5 or 6 receivers that are probably going to split the catches. You would think if there would be a guy, maybe a Nate Craig Myers, who could have 4 or 5 50-plus yard catches, that adding to the total, maybe an Eli Stove, but it doesn't seem like it. The more likely scenario would be to have 4 or 5 guys with over 400 to 500 to 600 each, in my opinion.
I don't think they're ready yet. I think it's going to be another season before they have a dominant guy. I'm interested to see who becomes that go-to receiver. I think a guy like Sal Cannella, even though he doesn't have experience, could emerge. 6'5", creates mismatches across the field. I'm interested to see how they use him. I'm also interested to see what they can get out of Kyle Davis. He missed spring practice for a second straight year. What can they get out of him?
Speaking of the mic, I think that there is a very good possibility you'll see a 1,000-yard receiver, because I think Jarrett Stidham will play favorites with the receiver. There will be a guy that steps up. I don't know if it's Nate Craig Myers, Kyle Davis, or maybe even Marquise McClain, but if I had to side with someone that will eclipse 1,000 yards this season, it will be Nate Craig Myers. I think he was the most impressive player in the spring at the receiver spot. I think Kyle Davis has some things to work on still, and I think Nate Craig Myers provided the most opportunities to be able to eclipse 1,000 yards possibly this season. Having said that, I don't see Jarrett Stidham as a quarterback throwing for 3,000 yards or more. I don't see it. Do you? You seem to think that he might have 3,000 yards. Maybe.
I thought he'd get close. I don't know if it'll be over 3,000. And there's going to be a lot of competition for the ball, because you got Carrion, you got Cam, and they're talking about both of them rushing for over 1,000 yards. And then you got all those backup running backs too fighting for carries. So it's going to be tough for Jarrett. Just number of throws. This team, only 8 teams threw less than Auburn last year in the country. I certainly think they'll throw the ball more, but how much more, I'm not sure. They're going to pick their spots. They're going to go deep, but I don't think it's going to add up to 3,500 yards or a Heisman-type season.
Well, and as a result, I would think that might set up well for, at least for Auburn in the future, that Jarrett Stidham might come back for another year. I spoke to Jarrett Stidham's father this week for a story we did, and he said, well, listen, we'll wait and see after the season, of course. You got to weigh your options, but he's going to leave that in Jarrett Stidham's hands, because Jarrett knows a lot of players that played with him at Elite 11, a lot of guys that are going to the NFL, have weighed the NFL options. If he has a huge season and he feels like he can be a first-round pick, Jarrett Stidham would probably go. But having said that, I don't think he would leave if he had a 2,600, 2,700-yard season. I just don't see it. Now, what you're seeing now more in college football these days are players do very well at quarterback, and then they stay for their senior season, or they stay for another year instead of coming out. Sam Darnold is one at USC that comes immediately to mind. Jarrett Stidham's a guy that by the end of this season, it's really only going to be played 1+ season of football. He'll be able to go to the NFL draft if he wants to, but unless he just blows the doors off the SEC, is obviously a top 2, top 3 quarterback in the country, I don't think he'll go to the NFL after this year. That's my opinion. Anybody want to add anything? I mean, no? Okay. Let's move on to recruiting quickly here. Recruiting is the lifeblood of any program. Keith Niebuhr is the man, the best recruiting guru there is out there. Keith, some players already on campus, I believe, for this weekend, but also more arriving. Just give us some of your general thoughts. Who's here right now? What Auburn fans need to be looking out for going into the night and the weekend?
All right, well, for Auburn this weekend, it's going to be a sort of a light visitor list for recruits, and the main reason is because Alabama and Florida State, with them playing, those two schools are allowed to have recruits at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, so a lot of the guys are going to go there. However, one of Auburn's biggest targets overall has decided to come here as opposed to going to watch FSU play, and that is significant. That's offensive guard Trey Hill from Houston County in Georgia. He's the number 34 overall recruit in the country. Auburn badly needs an elite guard in this class. He's the main target. He's the reason why they backed off a kid named Tank Jenkins out of Montgomery. Auburn thinks they can get Tank Jenkins from Houston County in Georgia. It's Auburn, it's FSU, it's Georgia. This weekend will be his 4th visit to Auburn this year, his 11th or 12th to Auburn overall. He will be back for future games. So that is significant because Auburn is going to need to replace a lot of guys on the offensive line over the next 2 years, specifically at the guard position. So Trey Hill's a guy to watch. A few other big-name guys here this weekend. Richard Gibonor is the defensive end from Athens Christian in Georgia. Auburn is the clear-cut team to beat. I do not think he will commit this weekend, but I do think he will be an Auburn commitment sometime within the next 4 to 5 weeks. You have 4-star receiver Seth Williams out of Cottondale, Alabama, Bryant High School, right down the road from the University of Alabama, but Auburn leads. I don't think there's any question about that. Auburn's in good position to land Seth Williams, a 6'3", 6'4", 200-pound receiver. However, he's going to ride it out. He's going to wait a little bit before he makes any kind of decision. But right now, Auburn's sitting in a good spot. And then the other big name is Connis Miller. Auburn has to, year in and year out, replenish on the defensive line, particularly at defensive tackle. The 3-technique defensive tackle position is really where you win and lose games on the defensive line. And Connis Miller out of Jackson Olin High School, former teammate of Auburn freshman Tadarian Moultrie, 4-star kid. Florida leads, Auburn second, Bama a distant third. It's Florida and Auburn right now. Most people that know him think at the end of the day he will pick Auburn, but he will be here this weekend. So a few dozen kids, about 15 to 20 to watch. Those are the main 4 that are uncommitted.
Here's my question for you, Keith, and everybody always has this question. Could we see a commitment within the next week or 2?
It doesn't seem likely. There's been some chatter about Richard Gibonor, the defensive end from Athens Christian, who, by the way, is from Nigeria, very close with Prince Salmons of Auburn, very close with Prince Tega Wanago of Auburn. Auburn's actually recruiting 2 Nigerians in this class and very well could land them both. The other is Coyote Oladell of Hialeah, Florida, which is in Miami. He's a defensive end as well, so you could very well, 2 of your 3 defensive ends in this class could be Nigerian products to go along with the 2 you already have. So he would be a guy to watch, but he still wants to visit Florida. He's never been to Florida. He has told them he's coming. Auburn's probably going to push for a commitment this weekend, but chances are he could wait it out to see what Florida has. But I suspect he's going to be in the class fairly soon, and Auburn will recruit. Auburn will be at one of his games in the very near future. That would really be the guy to watch.
Certainly will be interesting going forward with recruiting. I know everybody wants to know about Justin Fields, of course, the quarterback, as you mentioned, going forward. What is, besides the Iron Bowl every year, what is the biggest weekend you think this upcoming season potentially on the recruiting front?
And that's pretty easy to answer. It's the Georgia game, because as much as you want to think that Auburn recruits all the battles are against Alabama, quite honestly, Auburn recruits just as much, if not more, against the University of Georgia. Atlanta is such clearly the best city for talent outside of Miami in the Southeast, and that is really Auburn's biggest recruiting area. And so the Georgia game, which is 2 weeks before the Alabama game, will be a huge recruiting weekend for Auburn. And then when you look at the schedule, I mean, this weekend you've got a few guys are going to be here. Then the next home game is Mercer, so there won't be a lot of guys. Mississippi State's really the first chance. That's the 30th to have some guys, and Ole Miss the week after that. But really, you wouldn't say there's a quote-unquote marquee game for recruits until November when Auburn plays host to Georgia. And again, you have so many recruiting battles between those schools. Trey Hill, we mentioned, the offensive tackle. And there's some other guys. Kyler McMichael, a defensive back who's committed to Clemson right now, I think very well could end up at Auburn. Georgia's going to push for him hard as well. He is committed to Clemson. Like I said, that commitment doesn't seem rock solid. Auburn involved, Georgia involved. So games like that, that could be a game that he would want to go to and use as a measuring stick. And then down the road, your current season, you're really recruiting down the road. You're wanting guys to come in as younger guys so you can make that good first impression on them. So a lot of the top 2019 guys in the state of Georgia will be at the Auburn-Georgia game, in addition to these elite 2018 guys. By the time November comes around, most guys already know where they're going. So you're trying to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork for future classes.
Keith Niebuhr's always got so much recruiting info, my head spins. Let's move on here. We got one more or another trivia question. If you know the answer to this trivia question, come up to the table, give us your answer. The winner gets a free subscription to auburnundercover.com. The question is, what year did War Eagle 6 become the first Eagle to fly free inside Jordan-Hare Stadium? Again, that question is, what year did Auburn first use an Eagle to fly inside Jordan-Hare Stadium?
Do you know the answer, Brandon?
I knew the answer. I did, yeah. Because I remember the game, watching it.
Did you know the Eagle also flew at the 2002 Winter Olympics?
No, I didn't. I know not the same Eagle.
You know the Eagle?
I don't know the Eagle. Wrong. Got our first wrong answer. You should be very disappointed in yourself. You were close, though. It was the Tuberville era. First time an Eagle flew before a game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Were you at the game? Were you at the game that the Eagle crashed into the press box?
I was, actually. I was at the game in which, I can't remember which Eagle it was. I was covering Mississippi State at the time. I was there the year the Eagle crashed into the one of the suites and hit the window, and man, that was scary. Everybody went, ooh. And he flew away okay.
You know who's Brent Musburger, famed announcer. That's one of his, I asked him what his favorite memory of covering an Auburn game is, and he said, well, it was the Eagle crashing into the press box. And he's done a lot of famous Auburn games, but he laughed and was just tickled by the story that the Eagle crashed into the press box.
Brent Musburger's a special guy. We spoke to him a year ago, almost to the day, and I think I spoke to him for like 20 minutes about gambling. About gambling, and now he's in Las Vegas, actually, I think, co-hosting a show in retirement about gambling. But anyway, if you have the answer to this question, what year did War Eagle 6 become the first Eagle to fly inside Jordan-Hare Stadium? Come up to the table. If not, we will move on to our Facebook Live chat room to see if anybody has the answer, and then we'll award them with the... there we go. We got our first answer. What's your name? Cody? Cody just answered it. 2000. It was August 31st, 2000, the season opener against powerful Wyoming. Powerful Wyoming. Mike, take over here for a second as I get this man's information.
So yeah, there'll be a new Eagle flying. The other Eagle had to retire for health reasons, so that'll be his first major flight on Saturday. With Georgia Southern, I think we've all made predictions so far for the game. I think Auburn goes into the game as 5 touchdown favorites. I think they'll cover that and win probably by 38, 40 points. Brandon, I think you said under, did you not?
I did, but I also picked a push. I picked Auburn 45, Georgia Southern 10. So that covers the 35 points. No, I think I may have dropped to 34.5. So
there.
I think I'm going to be okay. I just don't see Georgia Southern being able to really do anything. I just don't see them being able to move the ball down the field against Auburn's defense. It's going to be very difficult. And even with that triple option attack, I know Gus Malzahn keeps pushing home this idea of you got to have eye discipline against a triple option team. One breakdown, and all of a sudden there's a big play down the field. Even so, if one player gets open across the edge or something, Auburn's got so many faster players than Georgia Southern. It's not going to matter. They're going to catch up to them. I just don't see it happening.
Georgia Southern coach Tyson Summers talked about that. Normally, when you kind of get into the secondary, you kind of maybe can get some breathing room. He thinks those guys are going to be right on top of everything, from the linebackers to the back end. It'll be interesting. Auburn likes getting shutouts, and that seems obvious, but the first-team defense takes pride in it. I just don't think the first-team defense is going to be on the field the whole game. There's going to be a second half where Georgia Southern is going to be able to move the ball against some of those backups.
Got quite a few Georgia Southern fans actually here. There they are. Can you hear them? Do they have? What kind of tradition does Georgia Southern have other than the national championships on the AA level? They're going nuts. It's Georgia Southern. They're going to beat the Expletive. There we go. This guy's got jokes. I don't know. Quite a few Georgia Southern fans here. There's Auburn fans here, of course. I heard that Georgia Southern sold out its allotment for the game.
Boo that man.
They are booing Georgia Southern fans, sitting in the very middle of the room. They have custom jerseys, T-shirt jerseys. I see Wheezy 300. What's Wheezy? Is that your nickname? Oh, the guy's making sex jokes now about my mom. Well, hey, tell my mom I said hi. Wheezy 300 is walking to the front of the room. Anyway, let's move on. I'm going to go ahead and ask another trivia question. If any Georgia Southern fans know this. Actually, the better question would be, I'm going to ask the question here. Name 5 Auburn players that were on the field for the kick 6. Bonus question, will Georgia Southern win 5 games this year? Does anybody know that? I don't know if they will. Anyway, if you have the answer, name 5 Auburn players on the field for the kick 6. Come on up to the table. You get a free subscription to auburnundercover.com. Just name 5. I know you know of at least one player.
Yeah, one should be obvious.
All right. Now the Georgia Southern fans are saying the 1 year Georgia Southern and Alabama were both played by, Alabama played both Georgia Southern and Auburn. Who put up more points? Did Georgia Southern win? Okay. I don't think they go in the record books and go, they put up more points, they get a win. It's not like hockey where you get half a point or 1 point.
I don't think they give half the points in hockey.
They don't give half points in hockey? Tells you how much I know about hockey. Georgia Southern put up more than 12 points against Auburn that year, so something to cheer about. I trust your facts and your knowledge on all things about you. That was a very entertaining week with Nick Saban talking about tin horns and what runs through them. So anyway, let's move on. Michael is just enthralled with his phone and the computer. He does not care about this show, doesn't care that we pay him to be here. He just looks at his phone.
I don't want to join in the heckler and heckle you, because that'd be fun.
It's fun.
So, just making sure our Facebook viewers are getting the view as well. So we're still going strong. That's all.
Okay, so again, the Auburn trivia question is, name 5 of the Auburn players that were on the field for the kick 6. To be quite honest, this is probably difficult, and I don't know if anybody's going to answer it. Name 5 players. All right, here we go. We got a shot here.
Chris Davis, Robinson Parisi, Gabe Wright, Angelo Blackson,
You missed on the last one. He named 4 and got the 5th one wrong. That was close, though. Montrevious Adams was not on the field for that. That's interesting. That's a tough question. I don't know if I can answer it.
Well, you should be able to. You have the answer right in front of you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I got the answers. But, wait, hold on. He's coming back. No. We gave him 2 shots and he couldn't get it. He said Ken Carter. He was on the team, but he wasn't on the field for that. That was of course, the kick 6 in which Alabama had all fat players on the field, weighing about as much as me, trying to chase down Chris Davis. Not a good game plan.
No, not a good look.
Not a good look. So, anyway. Keith, we were talking about Georgia Southern and predictions. I want your prediction for the game and kind of what you see happening.
There's so much uncertainty with Georgia Southern, not just Auburn, but Georgia Southern, because they're going back to the offense that they used to have. I don't know if they have the bodies right now. I mean, they're young. When you look at man for man, I saw a lot of these kids since I live in Atlanta and I cover high school recruiting. You see a lot of these guys, and Georgia Southern's always going to have good players. But generally speaking, they take guys that you need to develop a little bit because they're not getting the guys that Georgia and Auburn get. So credit to them because they've always built around that system, gotten guys that fit and guys they've developed, and they got a lot of guys in the NFL too. But at the end of the day, on paper, man for man, Auburn just looks too tough. Now, that said, they're more than capable when you run that type of offense of grinding out 8, 9, 10-minute drives. If they keep the Auburn offense off the field, and if they can force some 3-and-outs and force some punts after 1 or 2 first downs, they may be able to keep it close for a while. But I suspect 35-17, something in that range. But Georgia Southern, those kids, that program, it fosters winning. They expect to win. They're not coming in here intimidated, I can assure you that.
Yeah, certainly. The only thing with Georgia Southern is they're just so young. They're going back to the triple option, and I'm just not certain they're going to be able to kind of hold up.
We hate our coach, though. That's what a Georgia Southern fan is wearing to the game tomorrow.
What is that? Wow. I don't know if our Facebook crowd can see this, but it's a picture of an eagle, a Georgia Southern eagle, and Tyson Summers' head on a stick being held. And that's going to be on a shirt tomorrow, huh? So why do you guys like him? It's only his first. That's what I'm saying. Why?
Tyson Summers is nothing but a financial hire that had no business coaching in 1A football.
Wow.
From a Georgia Southern fan.
Wow. Okay. Who would you hire?
Jamie Chadwell, Charleston Southern's coach that runs the option.
Yeah, Charleston Southern's playing. Who are they playing this week?
I don't know, but he's now he's the head coach for Division 1.
Oh, okay. All right. So the Georgia Southern fan's not very happy with Tyson Summers. Wow, Georgia Southern fan just straight up saying Tyson Summers is garbage. We got a winner on our trivia contest here. Yeah, sure.
So we had the question was name 5 Auburn players on the field for the kick 6. The 11 on the field, obviously Chris Davis was one of them. Angelo Blackson, Ladarius Owens, Robinson Therese, Ryan Smith, Jermaine Whitehead, Casanova McKenzie, Gabe Wright, Jonathan Mincy, Chris Frost, and D. Ford. Well, that was the 11. So that was who I was on the field for one of the most memorable plays in Auburn history. So we had a winner with our last trivia question. It's pretty exciting. So we got it. So that winners of all the trivia questions got 3 free months to Auburn Undercover.
Appreciate it. All right, Auburn fans are not going to want to talk about Alabama, but I want to talk about Alabama. Is Alabama going to be Florida State? I think they will. I've been told by someone in the know down there that Florida State's offensive line, as the Georgia Southern fan would say, is garbage, and that Alabama is going to be just absolutely destroy Florida State's quarterback. So I'm wondering what you guys think. I think Alabama's going to win. I don't know what I picked, but I think it's going to be double digits at some point.
I've got Alabama 27-20 in that range. FSU's offensive line is certainly the weak point of the team, and I think FSU has gotten so much preseason so much preseason hype, and I think when you look at man for man, I don't see how they're getting so much more hype than an Auburn. I think man for man, Auburn matches up with an FSU. I do see FSU scoring as bad as their offensive line should be. You've got a running back in Cam Akers that can break one anytime, and then DeAndre Francois has a live enough arm that he can hit some big plays. And I don't think, even though Alabama's secondary had 2 or 3 guys make preseason All-SEC, I wouldn't say that's the strength of the team. So I think FSU can score, but at the end of the day, the cumulative effect on DeAndre Francois getting driven into the dirt over and over and over again should make him a little weary at the end. I think Alabama probably wins it with some long runs late. That would be my guess.
Well, and Alabama's home away from home is Atlanta. I think Jalen Hurts is going to run all over Florida State. They had really hard time with dual threat quarterbacks last season. I picked them to win by at least 2 touchdowns. I don't think Alabama's going to have any problem Saturday at the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Brandon's checking out some sound. Keith, any other upsets you see this weekend on the schedule?
I'm asking about recruiting.
Well, you want to talk more about? Well, okay. You're leaving. You're going to Central High School tonight. Why don't you talk a little bit? Justin Ross, what's his status?
All right. Well, Auburn's got 2 receivers committed. One of them is Bo Jackson's nephew. That's Shedrick Jackson. The other one is Matthew Hill out of Brookwood High School, just east of Atlanta. Auburn would like to add 1 to 2 more receivers to the class. I don't think there's any question the top 2 targets. Well, there's some other guys, but the top 2 really are Seth Williams of Bryan High School up near Cottondale. We already mentioned him. I think Auburn leads. And then Justin Ross of Central High School in Phoenix City. Where do things stand with Justin Ross? He's a top 150 national prospect. It's Auburn, it's Alabama, it's Clemson. Those 3. I don't think any one of the 3 schools has a great handle on where things are right now. I know Alabama feels pretty good, but I also know Alabama felt really good about Asa Martin and didn't land Asa Martin. I know Alabama also felt good about tight end Dominic Wood-Anderson and did not land him. So Auburn feels good. Feels like they're in the game, Alabama feels really good, and Clemson feels like it's in the game. Both Clemson and Auburn think it's going to be one or the other. They both feel like he fits more of the dynamics within their playing systems and their programs on and off the field than he would at Alabama. That's just their thoughts. That's not mine. He's not expected to make a decision until after the season. That gives Auburn time to impress him. He won't be here tomorrow. He will be at Clemson next week, and I think that's big for Clemson. However, if Auburn goes up to Clemson and has a big game and it plays well, wins, looks good in the passing game, then it actually could have the opposite effect of what Clemson hopes. Now, he'll love the atmosphere there, but the takeaway may be, hey, maybe I need to look at Auburn a little closer. So it's still wide open for Justin Ross. Auburn, Alabama, Clemson will be at the Auburn-Clemson game next weekend. 6'3", 6'4", 190 pounds, can dunk the ball from the foul line. He's an extremely good athlete, but he's also extremely raw. He needs to learn how to play the receiver position. He's not what you call a receiver's receiver right now. He's an athletic freak. He needs to learn more about the dynamics of playing that position. A guy his size and with his speed should get far more open than he does right now. That'll come with time.
Real quick, I know it's old news, so to speak, but was it surprising at all for Asa Martin to pick Auburn, and how big was it for Auburn to get Asa Martin?
Yeah. I mean, Asa Martin was a big commitment for Auburn for several reasons. For starters, he's a really good player, 5'11 and a half, 185 pounds. And he's a different kind of running back in the sense, well, he's a lot like Devin Barrett, who Auburn just signed in February, because he can run the ball and catch the ball. So he's a guy you can leave on the field. He's not a situational back. He can be that every down guy, and that makes it a little difficult for defenses. But really the big thing is the perception is that Auburn never wins any of these recruiting battles against Alabama, and that is an incorrect perception. As we've diagrammed or documented, Auburn has had a lot of wins over Alabama just since Gus Malzahn has been there. Austin Troxell, the offensive tackle, Kerryon Johnson, a lot of guys, Tadarian Moultrie, Derek Brown, Montravius Adams. So Auburn has had significant wins over Bama before, but this one really seemed to catch a lot of people off guard. Not us. We kind of thought that's where it was headed, but most people think when Alabama's involved in a recruitment, they're going to get that guy. And the reality is Auburn has won its fair share of those battles. So that was a significant win from that point of view, and then also because he can really play. He's the kind of guy Chip Lindsey's looking for that can be a difficult matchup for opposing defenses because he can run wheel routes and things like that. You're not going to see Cam Petway doing too much of that, but he can do that.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up the show here in a few minutes. I know Keith's got to get going, but I wanted to ask, who is going to be the MVP, the standout player tomorrow against Georgia Southern for Auburn? I'll start with you, Mike.
We'll go Jarrett Stidham in his first game back. I think they're going to give him an opportunity to shine. I think he's going to get a little more work than any individual running back. He'll throw a couple of touchdowns before he heads to the bench.
I'm going to go with Eli Stove. I think he's a guy you could see on some end arounds, some bubble screens, some deep balls. I could see Eli Stove having a 100-plus receiving yard game. I think they're going to split, throw it around to different guys, but I think he's that big play kind of guy that even on 3 or 4 touches could be pretty dangerous.
I think it's going to be a receiver of some sort, and I'm just going to go with Nate Craig Myers because of that. Entering this game is going to be interesting because every season opener there's usually some players missing, and we haven't been able to confirm anything. But there's smoke as to whether players will be missing this season opener for Auburn. But as it stands, I think that the big player in this game is going to be a receiver. And it could be Nate Craig Myers. It could be Will Hastings. But I'm going to go with Nate Craig Myers in this game. Some closing thoughts going into this one. Auburn versus Georgia Southern. We've already given our predictions, of course. I wonder how much do we see of the backups, and also how many freshmen could possibly play tomorrow, Mike? What do you think?
Double digits. I think at least 10 or 12, probably somewhere around there. I don't think you'll see a guy like Calvin Ashley. I don't think you'll see some of those guys, but I think you got 3 linebackers. You got Devin Barrett. You got Sal Cannello, who's a transfer, who's a first-year player for Auburn. So you're going to have a long list of guys. And there's like 12 listed on the depth chart, I think, alone. So I think you'll see around double digits in that first game. And they've said they want to play freshmen. They want to get those guys involved. And it's a recruiting tool as well. You come to Auburn, you play right away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're going to see quite a few freshmen, newcomers for Auburn on the field tomorrow. Maybe not in starting roles, but that'll be interesting. Real quick, I don't know if she's prepared. Myles, do you want to come up here and kind of tell fans on Facebook Live what to expect from you tomorrow that's a little bit different from things we've done in the past? Come around here. I think so.
Oh, 2 mics. All right. No, I don't think you guys can see me.
1 second. We're going to walk around. It's not even exactly live.
Gotcha. All right.
Maybe not. Here, I'm going to sit down.
Stop.
Myles, what you got coming for us tomorrow?
All right, well, tomorrow I'll be outside the stadium after the game, and you can come find me and say hey. I'm going to ask you guys some questions and do a little trivia maybe. We're going to make some fun videos outside of the stadium, so if you do go to the game tomorrow, you should stick around till the end and come see me outside of Jordan Hare. Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be doing some stuff outside the stadium after the game. Myles will be hosting it, taking questions from fans. Please don't cuss on the broadcast, everybody. Treat Myles nicely. She will have bodyguards, so you will be bounced, as Dalton would say in Roadhouse, if you say anything stupid. So I think that's going to do it for our first episode of Auburn Undercover Live here at Moe's Original Barbecue. I want to thank everybody that's coming out, all the Georgia Southern fans that are here. Did not expect this many Georgia Southern fans, but that shows you they got a lot of pride in their university. They've won 6 national titles. You guys couldn't hear that, man. Georgia Southern fan just said, if Auburn's going to beat Georgia Southern, just do it really badly so Tyson Summers can be fired. Man, that is... Whew, they do not like that coach. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Myles, I think I'm going to get you to hit the button to stop the broadcast. But everybody, thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody who won the trivia contest.